Here's the rewritten script in a engaging storytelling tone. Listen up, because what I'm about to share is going to completely change the way you think about studying. You ever notice those students who never seem to put in the hours, yet somehow ace every single exam? I used to believe they were just naturally gifted until I became one of them. And let me tell you, there's no magic involved. No superhuman memory, no secret advantage. The truth? I figured out exactly how to make my brain work for me instead of against me. And guess what? You can do it too. Most of us have been tricked into thinking that success in school comes from sheer willpower, from locking ourselves in a room with our textbooks for hours on end, drowning in highlighters and caffeine, convincing ourselves that the more time we spend staring at our notes, the better our grades will be. But let's be honest, half of that time is wasted. We're either stressing about how we should be studying more, or we're pretending to study, while our minds wander somewhere completely different. Sound familiar? Well, what if I told you that you don't have to do any of that? That in fact, you're probably working way harder than you need to? I'm about to show you exactly how to unlock your brain's full potential, and trust me, this isn't your typical study advice. First things first, let's talk about something that most people completely overlook: energy. If you don't have the energy to focus, it doesn't matter how good your study techniques are. Think about it. Have you ever sat in class, barely able to keep your eyes open, your brain refusing to absorb a single word your teacher is saying? Maybe you're slumped in your chair, mindlessly doodling or scrolling through your phone, hoping the clock moves faster. Yeah, we've all been there. But here's the truth. If you're half asleep in class, you're wasting your time. Period. So how do you fix this? You wake up the way your body was designed to wake up? Naturally. Instead of setting an alarm in the morning, set one for bedtime. Keep adjusting it until you can wake up without an alarm at all. I know, this sounds impossible if you're used to staying up late binge-watching shows or scrolling through your phone, but think about it. What's more important? Those extra hours of late-night distractions or actually feeling awake and alive during the day? The crazy part? When you start waking up naturally, you'll actually have more energy for everything, including your social life. Now, this next part might sound weird, but it completely changed the way I learn. Attitude. Most of us hate certain subjects. We sit in class, completely uninterested, staring at the clock, counting down the minutes until we can leave. And when we hate something, our brain automatically tunes it out. But what if I told you that you can hack this? That you can make even the most boring subject interesting just by shifting your perspective? And here's how. Find something, anything that you remotely enjoy about the topic. Maybe it's the patterns in math equations, maybe history feels like a real-life movie, maybe chemistry is just another puzzle to solve. It doesn't matter how small or silly it seems. The moment you convince yourself that something is at least kind of interesting, your brain will start looking for proof that it's true. It's like when you buy a new pair of shoes and suddenly notice that everyone else has them too. You see what you train your brain to see. But here's the real game changer. You should never have to study for hours after school, because if you do it right, you'll already understand everything in class. And this is where most students mess up. They sit through lectures passively, letting information wash over them like background noise. Then later they spend hours trying to make sense of what they should have understood the first time. That's an insane waste of time. Want to save yourself hours of studying? Pay attention in class like your life depends on it. If something doesn't make sense, ask. I know. Nobody wants to be the person who raises their hand and admits they weren't paying attention. But trust me, asking a quick question in class is infinitely better than spending 4 hours later trying to teach yourself the same concept. Plus, teachers actually love it when students ask questions. It shows you're engaged. And here's where things get really fun. Your brain hates memorizing random facts, but it loves the stories. Ever wonder why you can remember every little detail about your favorite TV show, but you can't seem to recall a single historical date? It's because your brain doesn't store information in boring lists. It stores it in narratives. So, what if you turned your study material into a story? Instead of memorizing disconnected facts about the French Revolution, imagine it like a drama. Who were the key players? What were their goals? What obstacles did they face? The more you make information feel real, the easier it sticks in your memory. And when it comes to organizing what you learn, I have a method that's been a total game changer, the mental blueprint. Instead of cramming in random details, I start with a big picture idea, like a map. If I'm studying biology, I don't just jump into memorizing cell parts. I first ask, what's the point of this topic? What's the big idea? Once I have that foundation, I start layering in details. It's like building a house. You don't start with the decorations, you start with the structure. But the most powerful technique I've ever used? Building a mental toolbox. This isn't just some metaphor. I literally create a mental or even physical collection of every strategy, formula, and method I've ever learned. Instead of trying to remember everything at once, I know exactly where to look when I need to solve a problem. Think of it like a video game. You wouldn't go into a boss fight empty-handed, right? You'd collect weapons and tools along the way. The same with studying. If I'm working on a chemistry problem, I open my toolbox and pull out the equation I need. If I'm analyzing a novel, I use the literary analysis techniques I've stored in my toolbox. Over time, this toolbox grows. And the coolest part? You start seeing connections between different subjects. But before you even start studying, you need to ask yourself one crucial question. What's my goal? Most people just open their books and start reading without a plan. That's like getting in a car and driving without knowing where you're going. Are you trying to understand a concept deeply, prepare for a test, be able to explain it to someone else? When you define your goal first, you stop wasting time on unnecessary details and focus on what actually matters. And when it comes to memorization, I use what I call the progressive layering technique. Start with the absolute basics, master those, then add another layer of complexity, then another. It's like stacking building blocks. You make sure the foundation is solid before adding anything on top. That way, even if you forget something under pressure, your brain still has something to fall back on. And here's one of the weirdest but most effective tricks. Talk to yourself. No, really. When you study, explain the material out loud as if you're teaching someone else. If you can't explain it clearly, that's a sign you don't fully understand it. Teaching forces your brain to process information at a deeper level. And at the end of the day, the secret isn't studying more, it's studying smarter. Keep your energy high. Stay engaged in class. Organize information in a way that makes sense. Build your mental toolbox. And always, always know your goal. Do this and you'll become the kind of student who barely seems to study, yet crushes every test. But the most important thing, be patient with yourself. These changes don't happen overnight. Start with one technique, master it, then add another. Before you know it, you'll be the student who actually enjoys learning, not just for grades, but because you get it. Trust me, I've been there. And if I can do it, so can you.